Okay, now that we have the processor and the heatsink installed, what I'm going to do now is go ahead and install the memory into the computer, onto the motherboard. So this motherboard comes with 4 memory slots. We're going to be using 2 of them right now to give it 8 gigabytes of RAM. Now, let's just pop this RAM out of here. Again, as with all computer parts and electronics, don't touch the shiny gold parts, because if you tarnish those or get dirt or grease on them, they're not going to connect with the motherboard very well, and you can get errors. It's very sensitive equipment. These are the G-Skill RipJaws X. Each of these are 4 gigabytes, and this one doesn't want to come out. Don't want it to be too rough on it. Also, these memory chips, some cheaper ones won't have this piece of aluminum on it. This piece of aluminum is a heat sink. All computer parts these days generate a lot of heat, and the cooler you keep each part, the better. So this heat sink absorbs heat off of the little memory chips that are in there and helps get rid of that heat. One thing to keep in mind, now at least this used to be true, and I think it still is, these 4 slots here on the motherboard for memory are in 2 paired groups. There's a light blue pair and a black pair. You can install just 1 memory chip and it would work. But if you're going to install 2, make sure, number 1, it's best to have a matched pair from the same company that are the same speed, and preferably actually in the same box, because these are matched to be the same speed and same design and everything. They work better that way. But the other thing is, when you're installing them on the motherboard, don't install them in 1 black and 1 blue. If you install them in 2 different slots, either the 2 blue or the 2 black, just to give the processor a little more memory a little more room to cool off and to draw air in. I'm going to use the 2 blue spots here. Now, so before you try to put these in, open up these little white connectors on the end. Those are what hold them, the memory in there. Also, you need to make sure to put them in the right way. Now, all memory chips, they'll have 2 rows of contacts. One will be a little longer than the other. On this memory slot, let me hold this up so it's a little clear, you'll see that there's 1 row of holes one's longer than the other. And so if you just take a second to look at that, it'll be easy to figure out how they go in there. Now when you put them in there, you want to get them lined up so that the edges go in these little slots here on the end, and then you just want to gently wiggle until they get down like that, and then you're going to have to apply a lot of pressure. But as is the same case when we were putting on that heat sink, you don't want to push down so hard that you can crack the motherboard. So usually I do it 1 side at a time. Just take my thumb and put it on the edge here, and you're going to push down until you hear a click. And when you hear the click, this little white tab's going to automatically click in, just like that. So just push down until you hear that click. Same thing on the other side. Push down until you hear that click, and that means that it's seated in there properly. Same thing with this one. Long side over here, short side over there. Slide it into those 2 channels right there. That needs to go down a little further before we start really pushing it. There we go. There we go. Wiggle, wiggle. Okay, now we're ready for the hard push with the thumb. Click and click on that side. And then usually what I'll do is also just push in with my fingers to really make sure that those little holders have grabbed it on both sides. It's also not a bad idea just to wiggle them around a little bit to make sure that they really are making good contact with the motherboard. Otherwise, when you try to boot up the computer, it's going to give you some memory errors telling you that they're not seated very well.